Okay, good, great. Well, welcome everyone, and I am honored and thrilled. It's funny when you get an assignment like this to talk about something. It's amazing how you dig back into so many things, and it brings up so many emotions. I think at the same time, and it's really a wonderful experience. And so deadlines can really be your friend. That's for sure. Right? And I know Stephanie was sort of talking about that. She's so excited because you kind of just know you got to get it done, and it's great. And it's really, there was so much material. It's like, how do I hone in and really make this meaningful for people? And I'm going to introduce in a second here, like our other epic entrepreneurs here, obviously. But I'm going to share a story real quick. When my boys were younger, and you'll find that a lot of what I share is really good for the family. It's good for the workplace. It all kind of works together. But when my boys were little, and I'm going to say maybe David was maybe 10 at the time, we had this, this might sound like a strange story now that I think about it, but we had this bathroom that had wallpaper up. And on the wallpaper were all these like quotes, right, that were sort of like motivational, fun quotes. And so he came out of the bathroom one day, and he looked at me and he goes, Mom, he goes, I think that Dad grew up yesterday. And I was like, no, this is my ex. So hopefully he never sees this. But I said, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, I just noticed on the wallpaper in there that it says you grow up the day you have your first real good laugh at yourself. He goes, and Dad laughed at himself yesterday for the first time. Instead of blaming someone or coming up with an excuse, he just laughed at himself. And he said, so I think he grew up yesterday. And I thought for a 10-year-old, wow, that's pretty kind of insightful, right? But I will tell you that David is the one of my children who doesn't take life so seriously, puts a lot of meaning into it, but doesn't take it so seriously. And my other son, is very serious. And so I think we all go through life in different ways. But I would just tell you, as we tackle relationships, there's so much that you dig into that's really at the core of who we are. When you start getting into that kind of conversation. And I will just tell you that have fun with it. Don't take it so seriously that you forget to experience and enjoy the journey of everything that's happening over these 5 weeks, because there's so much information that's being shared. And if we allow ourselves to enjoy that journey instead of looking at ourselves as like, oh, well, I'm not this and I'm not that, and making it stressful for ourselves. And so I really just wanted to encourage and start off by saying that, let's all grow up today. No, I'm just kidding, because I laugh at myself all the time. So I think I might come out as a kid grown up, because I've been laughing at myself, which is good, but we need to all learn, just experience it for that. So with that, what I want to say is anyone on this epic entrepreneur team could be teaching what I'm teaching and sharing. And the reason I say that is because there's so much amazing entrepreneurship that goes into reaching out to people and creating those connections. And Dottie, I think, as someone who does so much of the online connection with people, what that takes to build those relationships. It's not that it's dramatically different, but it does take a different thought process to get through it. You're still trying to connect with the person at the end of the day, right? And so I know that you're going to have so much to share as we go through some of this. And then Jen, who's going to be, she's a coach and she does the connection with people all the time, but she's going to be talking about when we have those tough decisions in our life, how do we get through those decisions in a way that that's in harmony with us and it keeps our integrity intact at the same time as going through a tough time or making tough choices in our lives. So, everyone, and, obviously Stephanie was talking about finances, and everything in our life is a relationship. She has a relationship with money and finances that is very powerful because it allows her to look at how she can turn that into her opportunity versus somebody who might have a scarcity mentality around it and where that might need to change, right? So everything we're talking about is about relationships. I know Yasmin's going to be talking about, the relationship around wellness and what that means for her. We even talked about her past in terms of how she views food, right? And her relationship with food. Everything is a relationship. So with that, what I wanted to do is, Dottie, I don't know if you want to, but I want to talk about the interconnectedness then of all of it, right? Because we have a relationship with ourselves, We have a relationship with others. We have a relationship to our past. We have a relationship to the things in our lives, like money and food and health and all those things. And I guess I wanted to talk today about, as coaches, how I know that we've all experienced that, right? How do those things all interconnect to actually create our relationships that we have in our lives? Because if you have that relationship with food, let's say, you can then relate that to somebody else. And how does that impact the relationships that you have with your own family or with others? So it doesn't matter what it is my point. So Dottie, I thought maybe you're the one that moved all the way out to Washington, the other side of the planet, it feels like, right? How has that impacted, and what has that meant for you? Because that's why you sort of became who you are to a degree in terms of what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Carol, it's funny because I hear a little bit of echo. Do you all?
Just a little. It's not too bad.
I'm trying to figure out what's happening. We might have to have people sort of mute out as we do it, I guess. Okay. Anyway, what's interesting that you said about humor, Cheryl, is that we got to laughing so much this weekend because Robbie's always, we like to leave little love notes, okay? Like in places where you're not expecting things and all. And like tuck them in a suitcase. And, I just took her to the airport this morning. And so the funny part was she comes in the office last night and she says, did you find that note that I left you last week? And I said, oh my goodness. I said, I wanted to wait and tell you in person because I've had it in my pocket every day when I was walking, and I had it there because I wanted to tell you, but I actually wanted to tell you in person. I said, I couldn't believe it. I said, I went to bed and I woke up in the middle of the night and I was going, oh my God, what is that on my ear? Something's attacking me. And I was just like twitching every which way. And guess what it was? It was a piece of paper. It was a love note. And we, seriously, it is something so silly. But we got to laughing so hard, I thought we were just going to both double over on the floor. And we went, oh, my God, wow, did that feel good to laugh? And sometimes, just the craziest little things that happen in a relationship, man, they're so good. And she's been having some back trouble. It was like, man, that's good for the back. Just it's almost like a release, laughing is, and laughing at the crazy little things. And the more I started, swatting this piece of paper away, the more she laughed. We were just having a big time with it. But yeah, I did move across the country, and then I was sitting here going, wow, seemed like a great idea. I left everything of 22 years behind. It's a frightening feeling, to be quite honest. Some days I would look in the mirror, this is no lie, I would look in the mirror and Robbie would say, how did today go? And I'd say, well, I looked in the mirror today and I went, how are you? Who are you? And she said, are you serious? I said, yeah, because sometimes I feel like I'm not even sure who I am right now. I'm just sort of going along and struggling sometimes and feeling better other times. And it just helped me to be so goofy in the mirror in answering these questions. But anyway, those are kind of the crazy things that happen for me sometimes in relationships.
But you took, and this is the thing, right? Your past and being able to work with teams, right? And to coach the way you did and so forth, you were able to take that to Washington and turn it into something, right? So your past and that relationship you had to that is how you developed into an online team person, right? So I think that's very powerful. So all that becomes the relationship we have with things we've done in the past and how they move into our lives and give us confidence around certain areas. And so for you, kudos to you because you've really harnessed that with the online connections now in the same way of creating teams and moving forward.
I just want to acknowledge that sometimes I understand how scary it can feel is you are going down a new path. It felt really frightening to me. I didn't know anything about online, and it was just like, what am I going to do? And it was like, okay, put one foot in front of the other. Do webinars, do whatever. Sometimes when nobody was even there. So sometimes we just have to do our own learning curve and let it take us down a path. And if that's not the right thing, then we move in another direction.
Mm-hmm. And being okay with making mistakes with gifts, right? In reality, if we choose to learn from them. So and then I've not known Jennifer as long. In fact, I guess I should. Do you go by Jen or Jennifer most of the time?
Either or. It really, whatever comes out, completely works for me.
So Jennifer, you look like a Jennifer to me. So Jennifer is a coach, and I know you have to see the interconnectedness of all this in terms of our relationship with ourselves, with others, and then how that impacts choices we make in our lives around certain things, right?
Absolutely. As you were talking, I was sitting and reflecting about my own journey and how the greatest aha moment that's happened in my life was the aha moment of, wow, the number one relationship that I really need to start with and learn about is the relationship with myself. Mm-hmm. I think, throughout, as we're raised and as we grow up, we're very relationship oriented, which is a beautiful thing. And what happened with me was I was more focused on the external than on the internal. And all of a sudden, I got to a point in life where I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do in life. And all of a sudden it all hit me and I felt very empty all of a sudden. And I had probably been feeling empty the entire time, but just didn't realize it. And so that was the big aha moment of asking myself, wow, I am thinking about my relationship with all these other people and my relationship with my work and my relationship with all these things, but I never stopped to really reflect and think about the relationship with myself through those outside things. And so when I started to shift the focus inside and started to get to know myself on a deeper level, started to get to know my passions on a deeper level, my value structure on a deeper level, it was unbelievable how the whole world opened up for me. Mm-hmm. And then, ironically, how that ended up nourishing all the relationships in my life. Mm-hmm. It was interesting that it's kind of counterintuitive. Like, you would think that when you're focusing so much on yourself, that would be very selfish and it would almost take away from the relationships that you have with those around you. But what I've experienced is that it actually nourished those relationships that much more. Because I like to say, like, my cup was full, like my own internal cup became full because I was focused on that the relationship with myself, making sure that I felt whole. And when that happened, it was unbelievable how my friendships, my family relationships, and how my work just started to really flourish. So those were the things that were going through my mind as you were just talking about everything.
And you're making me think, and I love what you're saying, and it made me think of, and I'm a huge fan, and I know, Dottie, you are, and I'm pretty sure we all are, a huge fan of Brene Brown's work, because I love the whole concept of just walking in our authenticity. And it's hard sometimes to really look at that. And I remember the first time I ever read something from her was when, of course, Oprah, right, who came out and sort of brought her to light. So I didn't know a lot about her before that, but after that I started really looking. But it was really an article that I saw just around that time when they started to sort of talk about, what she brought around authenticity. And you made me think of this quote, because I had pulled this, and it's very relevant to what we're talking about right now, but this is her quote. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world, our sense of belonging can never be greater than our own level of self-acceptance. Yeah. And
powerful.
Yeah, very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And so if we don't love ourselves, if we don't appreciate who we are, it's we've heard that before, right? It's like we've heard before that, you can't love others until you love yourself first. But I think sometimes people just think that's something nice to say, but they don't really look at it. Do you really, love yourself? Where is your level of acceptance of who you are, and embrace that and all the imperfections that go along with that, right? So, yeah.
And it's a lifelong opportunity, I think, Cheryl. I mean, we are 5 generations of expert epic entrepreneurs. I mean, that's who our gathering is. And so we've got the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. And Jen is the 30s, Cheryl's the 50s, and unfortunately, Yasmin, our 40s, and Stephanie, our 20s, are not able to get on today. But each person brings something different to that equation. And, you know, like Cheryl, you and I would say, we've had more opportunities to examine that over an extended period. And, you know, one thing I would say to younger people is, look, that opportunity, notice that I'm calling it an opportunity, not a challenge. That opportunity never goes away. And there's going to be some days that feel like, I don't know who I am, and I'm not sure where I'm going. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, we're going to feel very empowered. So it's just an ongoing process is what I would say. It's not like something we arrive at and it's done.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you never really want to arrive, right? Because if you arrive, you're probably done. And I don't think any of us are ready to be done. No, so even us in our 50s and 60s, we're not ready to be done yet, right, Dottie?
No way.
So this wonderful journey that I think not just this piece, but all this whole thing of what, you know, and Dottie's really been the visionary behind this and bringing these people together. I mean, I didn't know Jennifer, and I didn't know Yasmin, and I didn't know Stephanie. Dottie's really, you know, the one, and that's because guess what? We're from all over the country. And guess why? Dottie builds online connections and relationships. So that's why as we move through the next couple of days, you're going to get to hear, in fact, Dottie, I have something I'm going to share tomorrow that I think you're going to love, but you're going to be the perfect example of it. So that's why. And not only are you going to be the perfect example of it, your name, Dottie, is perfect for it. So, because we're going to talk what it means to be a dot.
Oh, okay. Tomorrow?
Yeah. So we're going to be a dot. And a dot is a drop of thought. So we're going to it's about dropping drops of thoughts for people to connect dots for them in their lives. And really, what I think that you have done so well, and I think we all do that as entrepreneurs. We always want to do that. We want to have drops of thought that help people to move, and then you get to the next dot level in your life is where you become what I would call, you know, you dare others to transform. And so when you get to be a really big dot like Oprah or Dr. Oz, you see what I'm saying? Yeah, those are no longer just drops of thought. Those are people that actually dare others to transform. And I think as entrepreneurs, as we move through and we want to be a dot, that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about that because you've done a lot of that. So that's why people now look to you for your guidance in terms of how to do this online, components of the BLABs and the Hangouts and all those things, because we all learn from you in that area. People look at you as a big dot in that area. But I love your name because it works with it. And I've been working on this concept for a long time. And I thought, what better way to start sort of sharing it? Because I've got all kinds of things I've done around it. And I wanted tomorrow to share that. And we're going to talk a lot about what it means to be a dot. So,
well, you know, it's interesting. My friend Cindy in high school, we called each other Big Dot and Big Sin. We just, she was my best friend in high school. So that's really kind of funny.
Yeah.
But Cheryl, with you saying that, I want to remind everybody that tomorrow you can come to 247 epicentrepreneurs.com, and you're going to be able to go on with a hangout with us, because we do the BLABs. We call these Motivation Monday, okay? And we do these BLABs every Monday, and we invite people to come in and be coached if you should so desire. But Tuesday through Friday, we go over, it's kind of like saying, we're going to meet at this coffee shop today, and Tuesday through Friday, we're going to have our mastermind at another coffee shop. So our next coffee shop for Tuesday through Friday is 247 Epic Entrepreneurs. And Cheryl's going to be there because the Hangout enables us to screen share, okay? That's something that the BLAB doesn't. So just for those of you who are trying to learn about streaming media and why you do one versus the other, this is great. There's 4 opportunities for people to be in these spaces, but you can't screen share. So just to kind of give a heads up as to how they can come hear you, Cheryl.
Yeah, and I'll be anxious to do some of the screen sharing. One is because I pulled some really great little video clips that we're going to share. Also has some worksheets, if you will. know if I like the word, maybe they're fun sheets, but the self-discovery types of things that we're going to do that are really going to be fun that people can use. And I think, everything that, when I try to do this, I try to do it as something that you can share in your work environment or with your family, because I think those are the conversations, right? And Dottie, from my project, which was the next best brain idea for humanity, the whole concept behind that is that how do we strengthen our families? Because, ripples flow out, not in. And if we can strengthen our families, then obviously we can strengthen our communities, our schools, and our companies, and ultimately our nation. But that real conversation has to start in our own homes. And as we do the own self-discovery, what we find is that our strength, in everything we do, starts with our experience that we had probably with our own families around our own kitchen tables. So how do we kind of get back to having that connection again, which has sort of been lost? Because schedules are overscheduled and families are running around like crazy, and we have technology to deal with sometimes in the middle. I mean, I've watched families.
And we're like in different parts. The United States is really a big country.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of smaller countries, they look at us and go, well, they've lost all this. Well, some of it is a function of people are in different states living in families. So they have to use technology like a Skype to have a Thanksgiving dinner together or something. You do what you have to do, but that's part of the reason. And some people never had that growing up, Cheryl. Now, we, at 5:30 every day, dinner was served. My dad came home from the fire department or from his landscaping business, and dinner was on the table at 5:30. TV was off, but some people didn't have a consistent family thing. So some of them long for that, or some people don't find it important because they never had it. It varies.
It does vary. And I will tell you, but technology, I look is exactly the same as money, right? It's energy. And if we give positive energy to money, it does positive things for us. If we give positive energy to technology, it doesn't. Technology has allowed us to communicate with around the world in ways we never even thought possible, right? It's allowed us to have family connections that we didn't get to have before. But somehow in our own homes, sometimes with our own families, when we do have them right in front of us, we've lost that connection in many ways. And so part of it is if we can strengthen some of that, even if it is over technology, how do we really strengthen those conversations to have what I would call the transparent, authentic conversations that we need to have, right? And that was sort of the journey with my children as we went through some really, really challenging times, and how we chose. And I'm not sure it's funny because I always like to say, I made a lot of good choices, but they happened by default. It's not like I had it all figured out and I go, oh my gosh, I'm just going to be, I'm going to know exactly how we're going to navigate through this. But I allowed it to kind of unfold. I didn't try to mold it. It's about, even with your kids, it's not about molding, it's about unfolding. How do you unfold something, but do it in a very good, constructive way that empowers and, the authenticity that you need to have in your relationships. And that's really what we're going to talk so much about over the next few days, are those connections in a really heartfelt way. And they're not always easy conversations, right? But how do you get through them in a way that you're still respectful of the person who's on the other side of that equation, and taking the ownership that you should be taking about it when you're, when there is a tough topic. And so all that's going to get discussed. And, and technology is just another way to have, it's kind of like we're sitting right now at the BLAB table, right? So I think that's really what all this is about. And, it's being able to do those drops of thought that we can share with people to help make an impact in their lives. And that's, as we move through this, all 5 of these weeks do this.
Carol, one of the things I've noticed in my life is the more that's at stake, the harder it becomes, but the more the reward. And what I mean by that, I want people to just to think about when you first start dating somebody, and people are just like, they're just sharing, and they feel like, wow, this is so amazing. They get me, I get them. And then maybe they become more permanent. And the things they said before become more challenging because there's the risk that they might lose them if they speak forthrightly and honestly and authentically. But at the even more important at that point, because if we don't, we lose so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So Jenna, I know too with you in terms of the coaching that you do, I would assume bringing out that authenticity for people. People probably don't even, I mean, it's not like you just know it even. You have to like really dig deep sometimes to get to it. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. It's such a journey of self-discovery and just the continuously raising our self-awareness, I believe is what the journey is all about. And what we said before is just knowing that the journey, it doesn't have an end point. It's not like all of a sudden, like I have reached, it would be like I've reached enlightenment and I am fully self-aware. It's like that's a big part of our human journey, is being able to go through this consistent self-discovery process, and it can feel scary and challenging at times. And what I always encourage my clients is that it's the most rewarding as well. There's an inner peace that comes with that level of self-awareness, and the day that you get to show up as your authentic self, it's like you immediately know it, because you feel so much love and so much peace in the moment. And it's just the ultimate gratitude for the people that you're sharing with at that moment. When you're able to share your authentic self, it's one of the most exhilarating experiences. I can remember the first times that I first started being able to explore what that even looked like. And I was very fortunate enough when I lived in Tallahassee, Florida, to have found a women's group. And I mean, you don't really hear that very often, but it was this group of women who would get together, and it was actually dedicated to helping women be able to discover their authentic selves. And so the shared agreement was that, you come in and there's no judgment. And so, if you want to scream and yell, like there's no judgment, just be who you are in the moment. If you want to be extremely excited, because sometimes we hold back because we're afraid, we don't want to make other people feel bad when we've had a huge victory. It was a space where it was like, just be excited. Like, we're all going to be excited for you. And if we're not, then we're going to help each other, support each other into looking at why am I not excited for this other person? What's going on with me? So that we can all be authentic. And I just remember that was the most freeing moment. It really stands out in my mind. And what happened was then it just encouraged the rest of my relationships. It was like a domino effect. It's almost like I was I had a great girlfriend day, just a bunch of girlfriends, and I got together. We sat and had hot chocolate and just, enjoyed conversation. And we were sitting and reflecting and talking about, that just the refreshness of having an authentic relationship with friends. And we were joking, we're like, wow, like, I don't know if I know how not to do this anymore. Like, it's become awkward to not be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing when that shift starts to happen, where it almost becomes more natural to be authentic than to stay at a surface level in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's an interesting transition that starts to happen in relationships, that it's very scary, like you were saying, Dottie, to take the leap into being like, what, I'm going all in, because, that's where the true connection is. But if we do it, and when we do it, it's one of the most rewarding and soul nourishing, I think, for us. And on top of that, it's like what gives us energy to keep moving forward. So to tie it back to entrepreneurship, I always say that, I'm like, I've not met a lone wolf that was successful. I just haven't met them yet. Every successful entrepreneur that I've met has a strong support network, has a strong community that they can bounce ideas off of, that they can be their authentic selves with, and really do the full spectrum of emotion that comes with the entrepreneurship journey. And so I'm such a huge fan of what you're teaching, Cheryl, because I think it really is the foundation of success in our lives, whatever that looks like for us, whatever our definition of success is. I feel like it always is tied back to our relationships. and how authentic we can be with ourselves and others.
Yeah, and there's no truth, and I know there's nothing more truthful than that it being a freeing experience, right? And sometimes, we can be sort of there in certain areas of our lives and not in others too, right? So it's looking at each one of those areas. We've all seen like the wheel of health, right?
Yep.
Sometimes we can be really truthful in some areas of our lives and then not in others, right? In terms of who we really are and what we want. And I know, there was another thing, and I'm pretty sure this came from something I read around Brene Brown as well, but it says they called it perfectionism, the 20-ton shield, meaning to be who we think everybody thinks we should be, right? We carry it around thinking it's going to protect us from being hurt, but what it does is it protects us from being seen.
Yeah.
And, so if we really want to be seen and for who we are, right, we've got to be okay with not, number one, being perfect and not living our lives to other people's expectations. And it's like, I know I've heard somebody say, well, if I do that, my neighbors are going to talk about me. Well, you know what? They will. They will for about 5 minutes, and then they're going to be on because they're really not that interested, in others anyway. But at the end of the day, I would rather have somebody talking about me from the standpoint of me standing in my truth than talking about me instead about me not really standing in my truth, but acting like I am. And I think people know anyway, at the end of the day, right? They know. So I think as we move through this, it was really hard because originally when I started talking about this, I was just going to talk about the conversations we have with others or the communications that we have with, when we're out looking at our businesses and how we want to attract people and how we're going to, form those relationships. But the truth is that the first relationship and the most important relationship is going to be with ourselves because it always impacts every piece of our lives. So we're going to dig into a little bit of that as we move through this. It's all going to be weaved in because it's all interdependent, right? It's we were talking, I think, Dottie, you might have been talking about it before. We were talking about the healthy body, healthy mind, and healthy finances. And if one of those is not in harmony, it impacts the other two. And I think that our relationships are exactly the same way. They all are interdependent upon our experiences in life and how we see ourselves and those interactions that we have with others. And so we're going to try to do a job of weaving through all this and tying it in, but again, doing it in a way that it's a fun journey for people to self-explore a little bit.
And each of them has their own impact. And sometimes we have one area more together than we have another area, Mm-hmm. And so we had the opportunity to look at the area that we kind of want to shore up, get some help with, get some coaching with, mentoring, whatever. Because ultimately they all do impact our business. And that's why when we set this out in the 5 generations on this 30-day Epic Coaching Challenge are all about, first of all, was with the mind shift versus a mindset, being stuck with a mindset. And then Stephanie went in last week with finances, this week Cheryl with relationships, next week would be well-being, physical well-being, and then the last week with Jen, talking about being problem, solution focused versus problem focused, in your business. And of course, all of these impact one another.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. When I started really working on this, I realized, this is all about mind shift work, really. I mean, I just picked it off. It's all about really being able to look at things a little bit differently and examine and say, is this an area of my life that I'm ready for a change? We're not always ready for a change, Mm-hmm. But if we can learn to recognize those things through awareness, right? And start to make the pathway, then we've taken the first step. And that's what I really think this is the whole 5 weeks was really about, this whole mind shift, Dottie, which, you and Yasmin did such a great job of kicking it off around, but it's all interrelated.
That's what I'm loving too, is discovering the relationships between all of these different areas mm-hmm. that we've been exploring. And like you're saying, we're taking on a lot of the life wheel for people to be able to explore. And if you don't know what the life wheel is, I highly recommend just Google image life wheel and it'll come up for you. And it's really looking at all the different areas of our lives and how we feel about the different aspects of it. And it's a great gauge to see how if there's any place in our life that we want to be able to expand ourselves in, or be able to put a little bit more focus into, to just enhance it that much more, so that we can truly be living our best lives. And so I think that that's kind of cool, Charles, about there's the relationships that we have with people, and then there's relationships that we have with ourselves, and then there's the relationships of the interconnectedness of all the different areas of our lives too. So it is a fascinating topic that, we can go deeper and deeper and deeper.
You can really go deep into it. And it's funny because I was thinking the other day that when I was doing coaching, particularly with individuals and families around getting healthy, weight loss, those kinds of things, there was one thing that I could say to people that would generally get me in trouble and they'd get mad at me. But if I asked them, are you really ready to hear the truth? And they really want to hear it, then I tell them the truth. But they would almost always get mad at me. But then I'd walk it back for them and I'd say, because here was the thing, is that they'd say, well, it's just I don't really have the time. I just don't really have the time. And I used to say, well, see, I don't really think it's a time problem. I think it's a prioritization problem. It's your relationship with it that's the problem, right? Because if you ask people what's the most important thing, and of course I was dealing with health, if you don't have your health, right? I mean, there's nothing more important than your health. And I have so many people say, well, I don't really have time to eat healthy. I don't really have time to work out. Yet it's your health. It's number one. In some cases, the most important thing we can, hold on to is our health, and to be able to do all the things we want to do in life. And I used to say, so let me ask you this. If you think it's just a time problem, if I told you next, at the end of the year, if for 1 year you do all the right health choices, you work out, you eat healthy, and you sleep well, you do all those right things, that your uncle who lives in California is going to leave you $1 million in his will if you do those things, right? Would you be able to do it? And they go, well, yeah, of course, but that's different because then I'm going to get $1 million. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not really a time problem. It's a prioritization problem. You don't put enough emphasis on it because you don't see the priority in it. So, but guess what? If you did that, you would feel like $1 million. Your uncle's probably not going to leave you $1 million, but you would feel like $1 million, right? And you'd be adding quality to your life. And so I think that we have to take a step back because we can't be everything. We can't tackle every area of our lives. I think that it's really important to pick the one that speaks to you, that you feel like is really the most important. I know for me, probably one of the ones I've really needed to work on that Stephanie brings is around the income piece and getting into that abundant state and really making those things work, which is great, right? So, but I can't tackle them all, right? And I have to look at where I'm already doing okay and where my next big need is. And so, and I know for Yasmin, she's looking at some of her wellness issues that she wants to tackle into. And I think we're all kind of looking at it that way, right? So how do we help people make those choices, but then get through it? So.
And I would say, just to reframe what you were saying a little bit, I think that it's not so much that we can't tackle them all. I think what it is that we can't. It's very difficult to tackle them all at once. Yes. So it's kind of like being able to do we are always working towards the holistic lifestyle, because ultimately the relationship between everything's interconnected. So everything is impacted. So by us choosing an area of our life that we have the most energy around at this particular present moment, we're probably going to have the most success by putting our focus towards that particular part of our lives, because we have motivation there. We can probably connect the why a lot faster to what we're feeling really drawn to, versus something that we're I know I should do this, but I have really low energy around it right now. Well, maybe it's okay to be okay, well, maybe I'll get to that a little later. What do I have motivation over right now? What can I really focus on? And let me put my energy there and really get the most out of that, because as that starts to raise, what's amazing is it's interconnected. It has a relationship. So as that starts to raise, your motivation for the other areas of your life will raise as well. And then when the time is right and it feels right, then you can shift to that part. Mm-hmm. Unless it's where it's feeling a little life and death, but then you then the motivation's there and you're all right, do or die, I got to do it now. But So I was just kind of like thinking about that, and I was like, yeah, like I think we're always working towards all the areas of our lives, and the ultimate is like where we're feeling cohesive with everything and are at peace with everything, but that we have to prioritize and focus.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. You're right. And again, because they're all connected, right? We have to look at each area. So, Dottie, I don't know in terms of the things that you're going to be talking about with the high tech, high touch, and connecting with people and so forth. Are there other areas that you, in the relationship piece, as we delve into this next couple days, that you're really looking to share into, or?
Well, I'm just going to be an open vessel, Cheryl, as you lead me through it, because, you've asked me to be on, tomorrow and Wednesday. I do think that in business, the high-tech, high-touch is a really wonderful opportunity because many times if people rely only on people within a certain physical sphere, they're not going to have enough people to really maybe impact their business in a bigger way. And I always remind people that the ultimate desire out of the high tech is to have the high touch and to have the relationship. It's not just to, especially in what we're talking about. We're not selling widgets, you know what I'm saying, like a little screws on the internet or something like that. That's a different scenario. All of us are in coaching, educating, training, mentoring, and so forth, and entrepreneurship. That's not done mostly is just a widget you sell. It can be, but in the ones that we're working with, we're trying to get people to really take those high-tech relationships and make high touch. In fact, I would say that Jen and I have never met in person yet. And Cheryl and I have. Yasmin and I have. Stephanie and I haven't yet. But we will, and we will all come together as a group and have our own in-person mastermind. But in the meantime, we are really getting to know one another through this process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We're creating our relationships right now, right? And learning what each one of them, because that's the strength of a team. And of course, you know that, Dottie, right? The strength of a team, all the talents we bring together and how we interact with each other and be able to share those things. So I think as we, because I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what it means to be an online person, right?
Yeah.
Many times, I can't think how many times, and I won't put a name in here, that he kept saying, well, but she's built it differently. She's built it online. I'm a relationship person. You remember we were going through all that with a certain company, and it was just a misconception about, because you're still building relationships.
The same things apply. They really do. How you treat people, your follow-up, everything that applies offline applies online. The only distinction is that instead of getting together in person all the time, you have this kind of, getting to know one another. But, I've formed relationships with people overseas in Cyprus and Greece. And like George in Greece, he's like my brother, seriously. There would be times on Saturdays where he just does history lessons for me through Greece and culture and how it's really the beginning point of so much that has happened in the United States. And so it's a wonderful thing. When we meet for the first time in person, it will just take it to a whole new level, but we already know each other. Our hearts are already connected. Mm-hmm. That's important.
Right. And I think this brings up such a good point of that. I've asked some of my mentors along the way, some really successful entrepreneurs out in the world, what is your advice and what would you say is the most important thing to understand in building a business? And the number one answer has been understanding relationships, and that business is all about relationships. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't agree more. I think that that's exactly what it comes down to. It's understanding, that we're all in it together, and that in order to build what we want to build, we have to have the right community, and we have to treat everyone as we would want to be treated. It's amazing how the golden rule that we learn in kindergarten applies to everything that we do in life. So I think that that's also a pretty interesting point that I've learned along the way, is that, yeah, even when it comes to building a business, it's all about relationships.
Absolutely. And she's bringing up something, Dottie, you and I have talked about, right? Because there is the golden rule, which is the foundation of it. But Dottie and I have talked a lot about the platinum rule, because the platinum rule, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it or it's not, but what the whole thing around Epic, right? And what Dottie's doing with the Epic for coding is all about treating others as they would want to be treated, understanding their values and what is important to them, right? So the platinum rule is probably even the one that, if you can really truly understand what makes somebody's heart do this, right, and where their passions lie, then you can actually treat them in a way that speaks the loudest to them. And so the golden rule and the platinum rule are both important, because we should never treat anybody differently than we would want to be treated. But it's also so powerful when we start to form that connection and we understand their needs as well, so that we can treat them in a way that it, is meaningful and valuable to them. So, and Dottie's all over that with the Epic coding and stuff. So hopefully those that are here went through that, right? Those that come through.
It's a great time to remind people, Cheryl, because if you go over to 247epicentrepreneurs.com, you're going to have the opportunity to discover your Epic code. But if you just want to go directly to discovering your Epic code, you can go to epicpreneurs.com. So I'll put those links down there. And what that means is, you get to, in under 90 seconds, okay, discover your Epic code. And what we say to people is, you are epic. We're all epic, and we need to hear that. We don't hear that often of how wonderful we are. And yet, at the same time, other people like to hear that as well. And what we understand is, once you discover your Epic code, if you can discover the Epic code of another person in business, that's like the holy grail, because you can learn to speak in their Epic language, and you can learn to speak in a way that resonates with them. And that's very, very powerful. So great opportunities for that. And really, it's all about tools that transform your conversations. At the end of the day, when I go in and work with companies, the number one issue usually going on is issues around communication. If you look at your families or whatever, it's issues around communication, how we connect with one another, or misconnect or disconnect. And so we often end up having to reconnect, because we might have to go and apologize for some words that we've said to somebody that we just said out of angst or anger or whatever. And we need to own that. Part of being vulnerable is owning when I've been wrong. And I personally have found that the quicker I own it, the easier it is. The longer I let it go, and it's like, so I need to I know that in my personal relationship with Robbie, sometimes I'm just like the other day, I was like, wow, I really said something that I really didn't need to say it in the way I did. I want to apologize right now. And then I feel better, and she feels better too. So there's not like that elephant in the living room.
Right. Yeah, because my living room is not big enough for an elephant right now, so we just don't need any in there. So I think, but that's where, and we're going to talk so much about, one of the things too that will get covered this week is, how do you have that really productive conversation and meeting, whether it's at your kitchen table or in the boardroom. We're going to talk about 4 guiding posts or guide rules or whatever that, really help to keep it so that everyone at the table, because I was listening to what you were talking about earlier, Jennifer, about this meeting that you went to with these women. What that did was it put you in an environment where you felt safe, right? You could share. It didn't matter. You weren't being judged. And one of the favorite quotes we used to have around that we brought to our family meeting was that when you judge someone, you're not defining them. You're defining yourself as someone who's judgmental. And so when you can get into a space with people, and I would encourage everybody to find what that is for you. Who are the people that you can be, whoever it is that it's safe to be going to be judged. That everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves to find that, so that you can really be authentic in a place where you're not going to, because that's what I think happens. And I've seen it in families, where I one time had a family, they're all sitting around, and the daughter did not want to be there. It was really obvious that she didn't want to be there. And after like 45 minutes of a meeting, she finally spoke up. And the second she spoke up, her dad said, well, that's not going to work. Now, how long do you think it is going to be again before she offers something else into it, right? So but we all deserve to find that space where it doesn't mean that we have all good ideas. Sometimes I have the dumbest ideas on the planet, probably, but everybody's ideas deserve to be heard and respected. And that's really what that's about. And so we're going to talk about how to have those meetings that really end up at the end of the day coming up with amazing solutions, because even the dumbest ideas on the planet. I remember they were talking about how the first guy thought that it would be a really good idea to take the outhouse and put it in your house. And they laughed him out of the town, right? Like, we're not gonna, you got to be kidding. We're going to put that smelly thing that we go out to go to the bathroom in inside of our house, right? So, but it evolved, right? Because they got together and they figured out how to do it. And I'm really grateful for that, because I live in Ohio. It's 5 degrees and I do not want to go outside to go to the bathroom. So that was an important step.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Mel Purotech. Thank you so much for your comment. We love you too. Thank you so much for listening to us. And she brought up about how it's important with our relationship with ourselves to do something for ourselves every day. And she asked us what we do every day for ourselves. And then really quickly, I just wanted to say that the thing that I do for myself almost on a daily basis is I go for a walk and listen to music. It's something that has become like a huge ritual for me, where it's a great place to just go unwind or think, or but it gets me moving, which I love, and it's some good soul time for me, and nourishes me and energizes me. So that's something that I do. How about you, ladies?
Well, for me, and I've been doing this a long time, and it's been something that I read something for 15 minutes or 10 pages, whichever comes first. Sometimes longer, but at least 15 minutes or 10 pages of something that is inspirational, motivational, and puts positive. For me, it's the first thing I do in the mornings, because there's so much negative around us, right? If you turn on the news or if you read the newspaper, whatever, I want something that's good coming in. And so, and what that did for me too is I had all these books I'd started and never finished. But if you read 10 pages a day, or more, sometimes it's amazing. I can finish a book in 2 weeks, and even take my time going through it because of that commitment. So now I've finished hundreds of books, and it's changed my life. And, that one, and it's just a small commitment, but it makes such a huge difference. So that's for me, my time. Yeah. And right now what I'm doing is extending that into writing. So I take it and then I write a page in my, thing, and that's my new thing that I'm really trying to do, is how do I take that and turn it into something for me too. So I'm doing a lot of that right now, but the reading has been a part of my life for a really, really long time, and it was a dramatic impact. So
love it.
Dottie?
Yeah, I have a longer history to say what I've done over a longer history. For about more than 30 years, I've walked every day. It's a rare day that I don't walk. I also start out the morning, though. I keep mornings as me time. And Robbie and I, first thing we do is we get in the hot tub, have coffee, and she reads out loud to me. It really translates better in her brain when she does that, and it's just such a pleasure for me. So we've read tons of books in the hot tub. We call them hot tub readings. And I always say if everybody had a hot tub, you'd probably get along, because you can't escape. Like if you've been upset or something, like you're looking at you, eventually you just can only do that so long. So that's a real help for us. And then I get out and walk. And 3 or 4 times a week, I also do something called Master Moves. It's just all about the core. And it looks like everybody calls it the Lazy Susan, but it's a disc. And it really moves so many parts of the core, which, as getting older, it's really important to have that good core strength. So I'll keep doing that. But those are just some of the things that I do. And I wish that I could say I always listen to music when I walk. But honestly, sometimes I do returning calls, which is helpful to me. To
That's productive to to do it that way. I've done that as well. It's sometimes a good way to just even get like some of my business calls done.
Yeah.
You know that I don't actually need to be at the computer, or I at least have access to my phone so I can access something if need be. But it just really helps me to move. And get my stuff.
And used to when I coached too, I would take clients to the beach. I'd say, do you want to have a, in-person session? Because I do in-person. I do, all over the world sessions. And if it was an in-person session, I would give them the option of either, sitting here where I do the coaching, or going a mile to the beach and doing a walking session, which is great. I love that.
Absolutely.
Well, I do have some, I guess they're like yoga moves that someone gave me one time for a stretching kind of thing. That doesn't take a long time, but I do that a lot of mornings. It's very helpful for me because I tend to get so tight across here and, whatever. So that's really good. But what I don't have, and clearly I'll make sure that Bob knows now, is I guess I need the hot tub to do my reading. So I'm going to have to work on that. But it's good today, I'm telling you. It's winter finally hit here. So anyway, so I know we're getting close on time, and we're going to end off with this is another thing. Who was it that asked that question, by the way?
Was Mel Puritan.
Okay, so now, if you're still here, the other thing that we're going to talk about is the VAX, which is something you can do every day, right? Which should be very, very meaningful. And I thought about, as far as something that you want to say, that's a power statement, that's a what you want in your life. And so I had, I'm amazing and I attract amazing people. And and that's really what I think this will be about is really loving ourselves first and then attracting the people that can share in that with us, right, and that we can empower too. So with that, what you do is you can say it to. I already did it to my husband, and he looked at me like what are you? So that's okay. No judgment. He's funny about it, but but you can do it in a mirror. It doesn't really matter. I know, Dottie, you have a mirror that you hold up, right? So you can, I don't have one here right now, but to go in the mirror, I'm amazing, and really you have to. Say it like you mean it. Honestly, I'm amazing, and I attract amazing people. And then you can do it rubbing your ears, which I think, quite frankly, feels good. I like it when other people do it to me better when I get a massage. But I attract amazing people. And then I was showing my son how you're supposed to do the movement on to bring in the kinesthetic piece of it and whatever. And I did this cheer thing that I used to do. And after I got done, he said, "Please don't ever do that again." So, but anyway, but you get up, I'm amazing. Yep. And I attract amazing people. Yeah. So, hey,
you take me back to my cheerleading days.
What's that?
You take me back to my cheerleading days with that part of it.
Well, it takes me back too, and I had to laugh because he snapped a shot of it with his camera, and I realized when I was a cheerleader, I have a thumb that does this, and I know weird, but both my thumbs. So I have pictures of my cheerleading with me with my thumbs sticking out, and it's like I still have that part. It's really hard for me to tuck those anyway. So now that I've just freaked everybody out with my double jointed thumbs. But anyway, so you do that where you're really moving and saying it. And then the last one, which is, I got to be honest with you, is my favorite, right? What is more powerful than really tapping in as we try to become our authentic selves and really work towards that in all areas of our lives. But, I'm an amazing person and I attract amazing people. And I think that I already know that to be true because I'm looking with you. And this group that's come together and the people that are joining us on the BLABs and in these coaching sessions is only going to grow, and we're going to attract more of that. And I'm so excited as we move through this week and really bring all that to fruition. Not for us. This has been so empowering for me, to go through with all of you and to learn from each and every one of you. So great things to come. So
Hey, thanks, Cheryl, for doing such a fantastic job leading us through relationships today. And so, anybody who's watching, join us Tuesday through Friday at 247epicentrepreneurs.com. And when you go over there, you're going to be able to have a button where you can discover your Epic code over there. And we're just really excited because of all the things we've been sharing with people in this 30-day challenge, plus a bonus because there are 5 people who are expert Epic entrepreneur coaches. And, just by the way, all of us charge, really high-paid fees to not only get coaching, and we're here at your service. I mean, we really do want to help you because being an entrepreneur has blessed my life in more ways than you can even imagine over the last 35 years. And when we can give back to you, that's really what we want to do, and that's what this is about. So this week is on relationships, but everything in business is about relationships. So come on over and join us. And thanks again, Cheryl. Thanks, Jim. And Stephanie, I hope you feel better. And Yasmin, we missed you, but we wish you the best. So I'm going to end the recording, and then we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.